It's day 12 of the lockdown, and on Sport SA Daily Diary today we're chatting to Springbok canoeist Bridgitte Hartley. Good morning, Bridgitte. How are you doing today on day whatever it is of lockdown? I can't actually quite remember.
Morning, Adam. I think it's day 12, but I'm not sure if we're recording the days of the week, but I've been trying to calculate the beginning of the week because it gives me motivation.
Yeah, that's for sure. You mentioned earlier that you're counting Mondays. Let's hope there's not too many more Mondays to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you cooped up at the moment, Bridgitte?
So I'm currently in George at my dad's house. I've managed to set up a little room with some gym equipment and my paddling ergo, and I've cleared a little bit of an area where I can run in the garden up some steps. So that's a little bit mind-numbing, but I haven't run as much as some of the other people have, according to Garmin or Strava. But I think I've been playing on my paddling ergo and with some weights a little bit more.
I saw Benny Roo, the trail runner, did the Comrades in his garden on Sunday, which is 250-meter loop, and he did 90 kilometers.
Oh my word, that is, I want to say incredible. I don't want to say insane because it really is, but it's actually incredible to have the mind power to do that, because it's not necessarily the legs, it is the legs, but you have to have more of a mind, a strong mind, to be able to get yourself to do that, more so than going from point A to point B.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Bridget, you must have one hell of a strong mind, being a Springbok canoeist and having won gold medals at the bronze medals at the World Championships and the Olympics.
Yes, I suppose you can say that. Sometimes I think that we just kind of put our heads down, and all that we're trying to do every day is try and perfect the technique and improve our training and always better something. And I think that's what us as athletes makes us a little bit unique, is that we keep improving because we keep doing the same thing over and over again to try and perfect it. And I think that's one of our strong characteristics, is that our brain is always trying to perfect something.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bridget, take us back to your days as a young girl. Was canoeing always something that you were passionate about, or did you just fall into it, or how did your career actually start?
I actually started paddling very late in life, according to most paddlers who have been successful in international careers. I was actually a netball player, if I have to say what my first sport was, at the age of, I think, 8. And I started playing netball in junior school when I was living in Pretoria. And I think I was actually too young for the age group, but I ended up going on a training camp in the holidays, and I filled in an indemnity form. And the teacher said, "Bridget, I think you a year too young for the under 9 age category. You'll have to start next year." So I said, "But you've just put me in the A team as your center, so I'm really good. You can't not put me in the team now." And I think that's how my sporting career started. But I went on to do athletics in junior school. Eventually, I changed sports to hockey because my parents separated and I moved schools, and then all my friends played hockey. And I also did some gymnastics for a small part of junior school. Then I stopped and I carried on in high school when I went to Pretoria Girls High. So then it was a little bit of a mixture of gymnastics, hockey, athletics, depending on the season. And I also started surfing when I was 13. And I think that's possibly what's got me some kind of love for water and building a little bit of upper body strength without even realizing, just enjoying the ocean and the outdoors, and also wanting to really learn how to stand on a surfboard going down a wave. If anybody's tried to surf, they'll know that it doesn't just take 1 or 2 days or a weekend or two to learn how to stand on a surfboard. It really takes a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure. But now tell me, you were at Pretoria Girls High. There's not too many waves around there.
Yeah, so my parents separated when I was 10, and then I moved down to the coast with my mom, and that's how I started. And then my dad wanted me to come back to Pretoria to finish school, and then I would be aboard at Girls High for grade 10, 11, and 12. And I think I was devastated because I'd only just started becoming better as a surfer, and I'd entered my first all-girls Roxy surf competition, and I'd made the final in under 16, and I came fourth. So it really was quite a move for me. But my dad was the one that actually got me into paddling. He started late in his career, or he was a triathlete and a really good runner, and he started paddling quite late to learn how to do some of the river races. And it was through him that I started to enjoy the sport of paddling.
So when did you take up the sport?
So when I was in boarding school in Pretoria, every other weekend when I wasn't playing hockey, I would go home and go paddling with my dad and my brother at replay. But I actually really didn't enjoy it too much because they were so much stronger than me that I would just paddle around the dam by myself. And I actually really hated it. And I'd always have to help tie boats on and take them off. And I didn't find it fun. I think because I had school sports and I was at boarding school, so I was always doing interactive things.
Yeah.
And then when I was in my second year of university, I'd been playing hockey for tucks, more of a just to keep fit. And I think the social side of hockey was a lot more fun in university days. And then I started paddling a little bit. But at Tucks, if you've ever been to the Tucks Sports Centre, there's this tiny little dam that you would think is actually a little pond with lots of birds. It's about 400 meters, I think, in perimeter, and I didn't even own a Garmin. I had a watch only, and I was told it's about 400 meters in perimeter, so I used to just count 20 laps in between classes, and that was my session. Nothing fancy, or if I did intervals, I'd make sure that it was about 20 laps, and that was how it all started. And then some guys that were paddling for South Africa and sprinting for South Africa at the time said to me that I should join them 1 or 2 afternoons and drive to Benoni. There's a Hungarian coach there. Maybe I can start sprinting or paddling a little bit better. So my initial reaction was, okay, I'll come with just because I want to have some training partners and I want to learn how to paddle better. But I said to them, I really don't want to sprint because that's like swimming up and down a lane. Surely that's not fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went there and you instant hit, because I mean at this age it's, you know, between that age and your first world champs is not that big a gap.
No, it definitely wasn't. And I think it was that I reveled in the training group, that I've always been so competitive, and it was an environment which catapulted that quickly. And the Hungarian coach, Nando Amasi, almost had like a prize parcel that he didn't have to change my technique. He had to teach me how to paddle with a better technique because I had been paddling a little bit already. So he didn't have to look at me and have, oh, wow, you got 10 years of bad technique that I have to fix over another 5. It was like, okay, well, this girl isn't too strong. She's got the sporting background, but she's got some tenacity, and I can see that she wants to train. So let's just see where it goes. And I think he just believed in me, and through his help and definitely the training group, I think I really got faster quicker than what I expected. But it really was the positiveness of having people to train with and try and beat, that all of a sudden you have some other girls on the water and you're like, oh, they're always better than me, they're older than me, they've been doing this for longer than me, but I really want to be good too.
That's brilliant. So when did you first represent South Africa?
So the first time I represented South Africa was in 2005. I went to the African Champs in Senegal. So that was probably my first big trip outside of South Africa, besides the neighboring countries like Zimbabwe and Namibia and Zambia or Botswana, which I traveled to with my family, often to go to game parks, or my uncle and aunt and my cousins used to live up in Zimbabwe at the time, so we'd sometimes go on holiday. So 2005 was the first time that I actually went much further and flew on a big airplane outside South Africa. And then I was very fortunate to go to my first senior world championships in 2006 in Hungary, in South Africa, and I was in a women's K4.
Okay. And tell us about the different canoe options you have. So there's the K1 and the K4, K2. Which was your sort of preferred choice?
I think initially the introduction for me was in team boats to represent South Africa, because the other girls were so much better than me. But then you get Olympic and non-Olympic distances. So you get the women's 500 and 200 is the Olympic distance, and the 1000 is the men's Olympic distance, but the women's non-Olympic distance. So like in swimming, you have some events that are the main ones, but then the non-mainstream ones that some people still compete in, which are also highly competitive. So my introduction initially was in a K4, but it was really tough because I was still trying to become a good paddler, let alone learning how everyone else moves in the boat. So in my head, to go make a boat go fast, you have to just paddle as hard as you can, push as hard as you can, and you just almost put your head down and spin, and your arms just go crazy and your leg moves. But then while I was doing that, I actually made the boat go like this. And so everybody said, Bridgitte, you have to learn how to paddle in a team boat. And I didn't understand that. I couldn't get the gist of that because I just thought I've got to prove that I'm good enough to be in the boat. So eventually I kind of found a bit more of a niche in my K1. I managed to race in my K1 in the 1000 meters in 2007, and I came fifth. So that was like a really great result for me. And then I ended up in a K2 as well, because that was probably easier to learn how to paddle with just one other person rather than three. And then my first Olympics in 2008, I raced in a K2 with Michelle Ure.
Okay. So, I mean, from coming fifth in South Africa to coming third in the World Champs in 2009, again, that's a massive rise in sort of results. Tell us about how did you achieve that huge gap?
I think, again, it boils down to a big training group. And in the Olympic year in 2008, we had big training camps with a squad all the time. And I think what my coach often said is that you thrive off a base. So if you have a really good training and racing season, you might not race your best at the end of that season, but you'd still, if you have another good season of training, you'll live off that year. And I think the 2008 season was an incredible one training-wise for me, even though at the Olympics I was only in a K2, and we were very fortunate to make it through our heat to make a semi-final, and that was where my Olympics ended. But then I became a super spectator and super partier and super tourist. And all of those combined, I did everything I possibly could. I went to the Great Wall of China. I did everything if I have to tick the boxes. And then 2009 season came, and I think it was just an exciting season that I know I had been improving, and I just had to repeat training camps and find people to train with. And then I actually had made friends internationally. So I went overseas for a few more training camps in 2009 as well, but I had the same coach. And I think that's kind of what catapulted me all of a sudden, but it wasn't really all of a sudden. It had been a few years of building up, which people hadn't really noticed yet because I didn't get results.
Yeah. And then the big stage of the London 2012 came around, and you were on your own, and again, another bronze medal. I mean, that's phenomenal. You must have been over the moon.
Oh, most definitely. It is still, and probably will be, one of the highlights of my career to date. It's one of those where after the 2008 Olympics, I also put my head down. My coach then decided to leave South Africa, so I actually followed him all over. So for those 4 years, for 2 years, I was training in Hungary often with whatever groups he was coaching. He had some young guys at the time, so I would always just start ahead of the boys in intervals, and when they came past, I'd try for dear life just to hang on a wave for as long as I could. And then I'm thinking you're actually pushing so hard because you don't really want to fall off the wave, because then you get waves and you end up behind them. So I think that was just also a great environment for me to train in. And then he moved to Austria and coached some athletes, boys and girls, over there for 2 years. So then I was training in Linz in Austria for 2 seasons. And it was from that base as well that I think, not really training in South Africa, but with international athletes pushing you all the time, watching their technique, having my coach next to me so often, it really did help me. And I think my mindset was there, but I'd put in the work. I'd put in the hours, I'd put in the training, and it was just a matter of, on the day, my race plan worked the best, and that was the result.
That's fantastic and brilliantly done. And Bridgitte, chat us a bit more about the Olympics. For us normal people who will never have an opportunity of going to the Olympics as an athlete? Obviously, you can go and watch and you can be a spectator, but it doesn't even come close. What are the special moments of being part of that Olympic team? Is it the qualifying and you know that you're going to the Olympics? Is it walking into that stadium in London? Is it the first heat? Is it climbing on the podium when you came third? Maybe just chat to us a little bit about those special moments and which really stand out for you.
I think the Olympics is definitely the pinnacle of every athlete who has a sport code that competes in the Olympics. It only comes around every 4 years, and it's a huge commitment mentally and physically to sacrifice that time. So to qualify is one thing, and usually qualifying is probably the hardest because you're then competing against the entire world. And yes, the whole world's competing at the Olympics, but only certain people have qualified. So then it seems like there's less, but it's the prime of the prime.
Yeah.
Slightly, because then you can focus on training. To qualify, it's extremely stressful. But I know that once I got news and confirmation at the Olympics that after World Championships that I'd qualified for the Olympics, I really did just put my head down and I trained. And you still have a qualifier back home, but you know you've done that before again and again, and then you're confident in yourself because you're competing for a spot at home, not internationally. But
yeah,
those opening ceremonies can actually be a little bit tiring. So I went to the Beijing one, but London I chose not to go. I only went in 4 days before the Olympics. But I think the big thing is the adjustment to the environment, that if you don't know what to expect, somebody really needs to guide you through it, because it's such a daunting thing. You walk into this massive village. It's not just a tiny little place. It's huge. You have blocks of flats that are towering. I can't even remember how many stories high, but all the countries' flags are hanging from them. Every single person walking around, not in normal clothes, they're in their country's clothes. So it's a proud moment for everyone from start to finish. And you actually can walk around in awe, and you're going to also brush sides with a Usain Bolt or a Venus Williams or somebody. Like, you might be lucky, but if not, well, then you weren't in the right place at the right time. But often it would be in the eating halls that you'd see crowds of people, and then you'd realize, oh, I should be there maybe. But then again, you walk into the eating hall and you have to put your bag in a locker because you're not allowed to take bags into the eating hall. So then all of a sudden you might have a line for that. So you have some planning when it comes to even going to train before your events. You have to wake up in the morning, figure out, is my accommodation on the opposite side of the village? Do I have to walk really far? And in some countries we have little scooters, like push scooters, that they take along with them so that they don't have to walk so far to save their legs. Or you just have to be like, okay, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get to the eating hall. Or, oh, I'm so fortunate I'm close to the eating hall, but then you're close to the hustle and bustle and not like, it doesn't stop. The village doesn't stop because you have sports competing and training throughout the whole day, and athletics often they compete at night, and swimming. So it really never stops. And then you walk into this eating hall and it's the size of a rugby field just in a dome. And then you don't even know what food to eat because you know what you normally would. But now it says Indian cuisine, Chinese, Western, and then you've got this middle section of salad bar, fruit, and you probably have things that cakes and stuff that you normally wouldn't eat. And then there's a McDonald's in the corner. So you walk in and you really, it could take you half an hour to actually scan the whole area and decide what you want to eat. And then you have to also be quite disciplined to say to yourself, well, I don't normally eat this, so I don't normally eat this much. This is what I'm going to serve, even though I can serve double and I can go back 10 times if I like, and I can eat all day if I like. It really is something that you have to be aware of, that you can't change your routine. Maybe after competition, when I won my medal, I went and I found red velvet cake, and that was the first thing that I ate.
Oh, excellent. Well, I mean, it sounds an amazing sort of atmosphere and experience, really. after the Olympics, you went to 2016 again, but you've had some fantastic results here on the African continent as well, winning gold medals at the All Africa Games, at the African Games. Were those, obviously they're not the Olympics, but were those on a par in terms of actually winning golds?
So I think the atmosphere that it creates at those events, they're trying to mimic the Olympic Games, but it's definitely not half as big because not all the sport codes are really there. In Africa, you kind of sometimes split it up, and South Africa hasn't competed in rowing and canoeing at the African Games all the time. So the first time that I did do that was in 2011 in Mozambique, but then there wasn't any water where the main village was. So we never got to experience the main village, and it didn't feel like a big thing. We went way. So we were actually competing in like a tiny little area, which felt like we were on holiday, but we were competing, and it was very small scale. And when I competed in Morocco last year, it was the first time that it really felt like you were part of the African Games, and Nigeria had a massive team, and you could see the different athletes builds, and sort of you could eat in the eating hall with different sport codes. So for the first time, it actually really did feel much bigger, and canoeing has grown as a sport in Africa. So it really was nice to compete at those African Games last year in Morocco, but it definitely isn't the level of the Olympics at all. So it's great to race there, but I think that South Africa is still a lot faster than some of the other countries in Africa, bar one or two. There's some really good Tunisian athletes, and there's one guy in particular who has competed in 2 Olympics so far, and he's got a few medals at World Cups so far too.
And tell us about climbing onto that top step and hearing the South African anthem play, and I mean that must be an incredibly emotive experience.
It definitely is. Actually, you forget that no matter what level of competition it is, or how hard or easy it was to get there, when you hear the South African national anthem playing and your flag rising, it's a really proud moment, and you just want to stand there and start singing, and you really do feel very patriotic about your country. And I enjoyed every moment of it, standing on the podium in Morocco. It was incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure. And what's next for Bridgitte Hartley?
So it was meant to hopefully be the Tokyo Olympics, just like many other athletes. However, we still had another qualifying race in May, so it wasn't for sure that I was going yet. Well, I was definitely going because I'm a candidate for the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission. So in my mind, I was still going, but I wanted to go as an athlete. So that's not so confirmed, and it's been postponed now, but none of the dates have been set yet with regards to another qualifying event. And in my mind, I was kind of going to say sprinting. The time has come to hang up my sprinting paddles. I'll never stop paddling, and I can still race for South Africa on a marathon, surf ski level, or local river races, which are highly competitive. But at that pinnacle level of sport, I was ready to say, okay, I've had an amazing career. Now let me look on and see who else can do it and who else is successful, and just observe that I'm no longer at that level anymore, or I don't want to be. I'm sure I could be if I really wanted to, but financially it's quite stressful trying to compete for so long for South Africa and not have major sponsors all the time. So yeah, it's a tricky one. That was on the cards for me next, and now I think it's to try and find a job and train as much as I possibly can, although we are in lockdown, so it's like a mini coronavirus training camp. Thanks, Corona. But at the end of the day, if it is to get extended, in reality, I need to start creating a little bit of an income.
I think we all do, to be quite honest. And Bridgitte, if you had a message for young girls, sort of 13, 14, that may have an interest in canoeing or even rowing or different forms of paddling, and have their sights set on being the Bridgitte Hartley of the future, what message would you send out to them, especially maybe in this lockdown period as well?
Yes, it's really tough now to keep people's spirits high. So it might sound amazing that I'm able to send a good message, but everybody's going through ups and downs. But I think I would definitely tell somebody to keep persevering. It really isn't something that happens overnight. I've seen a lot of the young girls training at my club in Pietermaritzburg, and I really love the fact that they train together, they have fun, they enjoy it. There's some banter between the boys, and I think to achieve something at a top level, you have to be pretty focused in doing that little bit extra all the time that your peers are not doing. But I also believe strongly that you should enjoy it. You should enjoy the journey, even though sometimes when you get to a top level, it's not always fun. It looks great when we get results, but you haven't seen the up, down our heads and worked hard when it's raining really hot or dry, and when your body aches. It really is a mental game with yourself to wake up one morning when everything hurts and you've got to try and do some sort of exercise. Even now, I think I've challenged myself, and I wake up and I say to myself, why? So I think it would just be to try and believe. I have a little saying, always believe something wonderful is about to happen, but I think you create that yourself.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Bridgitte, it's been fantastic chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us today on Sport SA Daily Diary. And let's hope we will be seeing you at the 2021 Olympic Games.
So do I. Thanks so much for the talk.
Great to chat. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Catch us tomorrow on Sport SA Daily Diary, where we'll be chatting to Scottish rugby's newest cap, South African-born Kyle Steyn.